Karen Riggs. I'm the Highway and Floodplain Director for COCHISE County. I'm here today to give you a tour of a very exciting project, the Plaominas Recharge Project. It was built in the summer of 2014, and we're going to run you through the whole thing. It is now August of 2016, and I'm here to tell you a little bit about the project. I'm standing just upstream of the basin itself, but I want to talk to you about where the project really starts, and that's in the mountains. So behind me, you can see the COCHISE. Part of Ash Canyon is contributing to this watershed. We've got a 7.5 square mile watershed that runs down through here. It comes out of the mountains, runs through several canyons, turns back into sheet flow, which means there's no channel. You can see behind me, this is where the water runs. There's no channel at all. It's just slow moving, spread out water. And we are capturing parts of that with this project, moving it down a little closer to the river. We're about a mile and a half from the San Pedro River right now. And as we go through the project, you'll see how we collect that sheet flow, move it down where it can be more effective, and recharge it into the aquifer. We're here at some of the monitoring equipment. One of the very unique things about this project is that we have it heavily monitored from upstream. That's where we are now. This is a baseline well, all the way through the project, and we'll see some of those as we go through. The monitoring is really critical to tell us exactly what's happening in the recharge basins and what kind of water we're getting underground, how we're building a groundwater mound underneath, and how that's moving toward the river. This is a pilot project, and part of the funding was for monitoring, and so we've got very great monitoring on the project. I'm standing in the main spillway into the detention basin part of the project. So we've had the water fall on the mountain, run off, run into the little canyons, spread out into sheet flow, come across this land in back of me, and now we're collecting that sheet flow. These big rocks are to slow down the velocity, drop the sediment that it's picked up as it's been running along, and slow it down and quietly release it into the detention basin that we'll look at in just a minute. We've moved down now, one more step in the tour that we're on. So remember, we started at the top of the mountain, the water came down, went into channels, spread out into sheet flow, we captured it in the riprap channel coming in that we were at just a minute ago, and now it's in the 10-acre basin here. Part of this was built for flood control, but it also worked very well to collect all that sheet flow and meter it out. So to meter this water out into the next part of the project, we have an outlet structure here, which are small pipes under this berm that I'm standing on that slowly meter the water out into a structure that we'll look at in a minute. We also have an emergency spillway, is the concrete that you see here. So if we got a storm that filled this basin up, and these pipes underneath could not handle the flow out, the excess flow would run over the top of that emergency spillway through a lined channel and down into the project as well. So all the water that comes here eventually moves right out into the next part of the project. Now we're at the downstream side of the outlet to the basin. The basin's just over the hill right there. We looked at the inlet structure where the water comes in when it's sitting in the basin, it's making its way out. These are the 3 pipes that outlet the flow onto the next phase. So if these are a lot bigger than the ones you saw on the upstream side, those 3 are the initial meter pipes. They take the lower flow out. Once the water gets to 3 feet, it would drop over that grate that you saw and help fill these more full. But these are the main outlet. If there's too much water in the basin, it'll come out over the concrete spillway that you can see behind me and run down this channel and out under Plaominas Road into the next phase of the project. We're now on the east side of Plaominas Road. You can see the 4 culverts behind me that we were looking at a minute ago. The water out of the basin comes through those culverts and down into what we'll show you is a half-a-mile long channel with 13 weir walls that slow down the water as it moves toward the river. This is the first wall. We had rain last night. There's still just a little bit of water in the downstream port here. It'll be absorbed and gone by this evening. So we've always had these basins dry up within 24 to 30 hours. So they work really well. But the water comes here, the little concrete walls slow it down so that part of it soaks in, and the rest of it runs over and goes to the next basin. We're now about 2/3 of the way down the half-a-mile long channel. Behind me, you're looking at all the weir walls all the way back up to Plaominas Road. The weir walls, as I said before, slow the water down, sink it into the ground in each little basin. The overflow runs over the top and on down to the next basin, cascading all the way down the channel. This is a pilot project, so we put in different types of treatments in the basins to test additional infiltration so that we can get the water in the ground faster. The enemy of recharge here is evaporation. We have such high evaporation in this part of the state that we really want to get the water underground as soon as possible so that we don't lose too much to evaporation. So we've got 4 different types of basins that we're testing here. One is a plain basin with no additional treatments, just to see what the basin itself will infiltrate. We monitor that. The second type is, we have 2 types of dry wells. We have a single chamber dry well and a dual chamber dry well. These are pretty high tech and we're monitoring them very closely because they also have a fairly high operations cost and maintenance. Then our last test is an infiltration trench, and it's just a big trench in the ground filled with gravel, topped off with rock that mimics the action of the dry wells at much less cost to construct and to maintain. So we're testing all of those to see for the next projects. This is the pilot. It's doing its job. It's recharging water, but it's also teaching us how to build the next project. So that's why we have all the different tests in the basins. We're now at the very bottom of the project. We followed a drop of water from the top of the mountain all the way down through channels, back out into sheet flow, back into our detention basin, through the outlet, through the culverts, into our basins, and down toward the San Pedro River. We actually ended the channel part of this project a little less than 100 yards behind me. And the reason we did that is we wanted to have enough room to transition that flow truly back out into sheet flow before it left the county property and made its way the next 1/4 of a mile to the San Pedro River. I'm glad to say that it's worked very well. The little building you see behind me is a well house. That was our first monitoring piece of equipment. It was an existing well that was on the property when we bought it, and we started monitoring the water levels in that about 15 months before we started construction of the project. So we have a little over a year's worth of data before we put the project into place. And we monitor the water levels, and it's shown that we are building a groundwater mound under the project here as we sink water into the ground in each one of those little basins. If you look back beyond the well house, you can see some of those weir walls making their way back up to Plaominas Road and the basin on the other side. And you can see the Ash Canyon watershed where every drop of water started from.